Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Hard Card with Authentic Collectibles. I'm Andrew Van Leeuwen from Speed Cafe, and we are normally at Authentic Collectibles HQ in Perth, but not today. We are a long way from Perth. We are all the way over at Bathurst, and I'm joined by a Bathurst legend, an Australian touring car legend. Of course, I'm talking about Dick Johnson. Dick, thanks for joining us.
No problem, buddy.
We were just in the press conference before, and Brad Jones was in there, and he was talking about how he doesn't really get nervous when he goes to a racetrack anymore. He's done it so many times, but this place is different. Like when you come to Bathurst, he still sort of feels the nerves in the build-up. Is it still sort of stir something up in yourself coming back here even after all those years?
Look, it's obviously the main event of the year, and certainly the biggest event of the year, and it always has been for many, many years. So, and I've been coming to this place now for 60 years. Started off as a spectator and then a competitor for the rest of them. So, yeah, it is a special place, and a lot of people come here, and you can see why, because it's a great event to be part of. If you see it on television is one thing, but to be here in person, it's a totally different thing.
It really is. Now, we want to chat about the 1994 Bathurst 1000, which you and John Bower won. It's the 30th anniversary of that fantastic win. I just want to start with chatting a bit about what those early iterations of the V8 supercars were like to drive, because obviously we've heard a lot about the Sierras and how tough they were on the narrow tyres and with all that horsepower that came rushing on. What were those early Falcons like to drive?
Well, look, that was a new era. The start of the new era, I think, was the first time that we ran it was called the 5-litre V8 series or whatever you want to call it. It was the cars were totally different because they were based on the road-going versions of cars that you could buy here in Australia, and obviously the Falcon and the Commodore were the two cars to have. So at the end of the day, the Falcon, even though they had all the standard body parts made out of metal, not carbon fibre or anything like that, they were a really good thing to drive if you got them right. But getting them right was a big problem.
How was the build-up to the race that year? Did you come to Bathurst feeling like you should be in the mix to win?
Well, to be quite honest, right up until after the top 10 shootout, I wanted to go home because the car was horrible. It was one of those cars that you didn't know what the hell it was going to do, whether it was going to bite you or whatever. And fortunately for us, after the top 10 shootout, where I sort of clipped the wall coming out of the going up the hill anyway, but which put the metal rear guard onto the rear tyre. And I can tell you, I was crapping myself for the rest of the lap because whether the tyre was going to go bang or not, it could have made a huge incident. But Jimmy Stone at the end of it said, I think, we'll do this change, which he did. He made a change to the rear shock absorbers, and from that point on, it was the best car I'd ever driven around here. It was unbelievable. And when you get into a car where you know damn well exactly what it's going to do, when you turn up at a corner, you tip it in, you know exactly what it's going to do. And quite frankly, it was unbelievable to drive because you knew damn well it was not going to bite you because you could predict exactly what was going to happen.
And a circuit like this, when you have that confidence, I mean, it makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
Well, you not only get the most out of the car, but you get the most out of obviously the guy that's driving it.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Barry will tell you too that it was the best car he's ever driven.
You mentioned the shootout there where you clipped the wall at the cutting.
Yep.
I actually wanted to ask you about that before. Did you think at some point maybe I should get out of this and just roll back down to the pits? Because obviously you know the Bathurst can bite and how bad it can go wrong if something does let go at the wrong spot.
Yeah, it sure can. But at the end of the day, mate, you come here to sort of go pretty well and you forget about all that. Okay, the smoke was one thing, but it managed to finish the lap and unfortunately nothing bad happened.
That was Steve's first Bathurst as well, wasn't it?
Certainly was, yeah.
What was it like, particularly in the build-up to the race itself, being here as a competitor, but being here as a dad to someone who's having this kind of career milestone, such an important moment in their career as well?
Well, he certainly showed the ability he had at that point in time because he did an extremely good job. And at one stage there, I think we were running first and second. And it wasn't until the guy who was driving with put in the bunker up the top of the hill and lost a lap that he could have had an amazing result. but that's just the nature of the business we're in.
You've talked about this a few times. Where did you find JB hiding when at the start of the race when it was raining and you wanted to stick him in the car?
Oh, well, that was Ross Stone's job. He went and found him, mate. He was probably hiding in the truck somewhere or something like that. But we had a plan. We knew what we wanted to do, and we knew the safest way of doing it, and that was putting JB in the car to start with.
It seems really foreign to us with modern supercars, but I think there was 3 different tyre manufacturers back
Correct.
then. It seemed like that they would sort of come and go in those wet conditions as the conditions changed a bit. One tyre would be better than the other. Was that sort of what contributed to the sort of seesawing battle in the first part of the race?
Well, this is, unique around here because there was, at that point in time, the track's a lot different now, but there was quite a number of different surfaces, and in the wet, that changes things dramatically. So, but we had Dunlops, and I'd been with Dunlop forever and a day, and we had a pretty good tyre package, and which proved to be the best tyre at the end of the day, I thought.
At what point during the race did you start to think, hey, we're right in this, like we've come from 10th, but we are very much in the mix to actually win this race?
Well, everything went, with pit stops and everything went perfectly, really. And JB, did a magnificent job, as he always did. And we had pretty good battles along the way. I think I had a pretty good battle with Jones. He was there sort of pushing us the whole way, and then JB got in the car at the end of the day. But what a lot of people don't realise, that early in the race, when JB was in his stint, he was about 20 metres off putting a lap on Craig Lowndes, and the safety car came out.
Right.
And that brought him back up to the pack. So, yeah, things were a lot different then. But, it's just one of those things where it didn't go quite our way that time. But at this point, we felt we were fairly confident with the car we had. It was good.
So it could have been a much more relaxing end to the race had things been very slightly differently.
Well, it was, because apparently Craig Lowndes, when he passed him going up into turn 2 there, was it sort of struck a bit of a nerve and saying, boy, what are we going to do here? Come on, JB, you're not going to let some snotty-nosed kid beat you,
Yeah,
So,
were you actually on the radio? I know I've heard you say that. Were you on the radio? What sort of rev up did you give him once his kid's gone past him?
True to his form, JB, he sort of put his head down and got the better of it.
Was there any verbal response on the radio from him when you were giving him a rev up, or did he just Did he just go racing?
He was very relaxed on the radio.
It's obviously a really well told story about how Craig kind of burst onto the scene, with that race, and the fact that he had that dice with JB and that sort of stuff. Did you know much about Craig at that point? Was he sort of on the radar of the touring car regulars?
Well, I sort of knew of him, obviously, because he was part of the probably one of the biggest teams in pit lane, and he'd obviously been overseas doing stuff and things like that. So, he was no amateur, that's for sure. And, it was just a matter of dialing him into these cars, which he proved to dial in pretty well.
Were you always confident that JB was going to get that lead back? It's Bathurst. You never know what's going to happen here. He was obviously quicker, but did you think it's going to be fine, or was it nervous?
Well, I knew it wouldn't be a problem because I know what JB's like. He's a real terrier.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, I was quite surprised how Lowndes went round the outside of him. But then it was revealed that, or so it was reported, that Lowndesy missed the brake pedal or something. So, because JB's harder to pass than a kidney stone.
There was a really nervy moment with a back marker at the last corner quite late in the race. It sort of opened the door for JB to get the position back. But what were you thinking when you're sitting there watching 3 cars sort of going for one bit of road at this really critical phase of the biggest race of the year?
That's where the experience comes in with someone like JB. He took advantage of a situation that come up in front of him, and from that point on, he was gone.
Yeah. A lot of drivers talk about how in those pressure situations late in the day in those big races, they'd rather be in the car than in the garage because they're much more nervous in the garage. How are you with that? Were you good at sitting there watching the car go around, or would you rather be in it?
Well, I won't kid you. I was pretty nervous too, mate, because Yeah, winning at Bathurst means an awful lot. You know, it's just nobody really remembers that much about who won a championship, but they always remember who won Bathurst.
Is there any way to describe what it's like when that car crosses the line and you've won the Bathurst 1000? Is there any way you can sort of put it into words?
Yeah, well, the thing comes about, you know, where you go out and you think you're going to celebrate, but at the end of the day, mate, you've had a pretty tough day and you've been obviously losing a lot of fluids and things like that, and to have a beer is not the best thing you can do. So, yeah, I don't think we celebrated too hard. We just sort of took it all in our stride and obviously enjoyed the moment, that's for sure.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Dick. It's fantastic to hear about that wonderful race. One of my sort of earliest Bathurst memories as well was watching that one. So yeah, it's fantastic to reminisce about that. So thanks for joining us.
Be good to have a repeat, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Hard Card. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another one. Make sure you subscribe to the Authentic Collectibles YouTube channel and click the little bell so you never miss an episode.